So now this is going to be Mabyn's sequence for week 5. um, I don't. I don't think your front cross was really late. Maybe you could have done it a teeny bit sooner, but boy, I don't know. I think it's pretty good. And I'm looking at her reaction, and she looks like she's taking the jump in this direction. In fact, I know she's gonna land there. So I guess ideally she would have been a little closer to this wing if she had read it, if you had done it sooner. But um, yeah, it's pretty close. As far as slowing down around there, I agree with you. I think there are some dogs, a lot of dogs really, that don't love running into the gating. So when they're jumping into here like this, she slows down even there before she takes the blue jump. Um, some of that you can get rid of with just time and experience, where they learn to trust that just because they're jumping in towards the gate, it's going to be okay, and um, they're doing the right thing. So the teeter, this is probably the biggest feedback for the sequence that I want to give. I'll come back to it when you hit it again. This is a very nice rear cross. She reads it really well, how she's hugging the inside of that wing. And I also really like is that you do front cross, an unnecessary front cross, but great for training at the end of the weaves there. Great job with that. Okay, so, and this is a great camera view of the teeter. This is what I think is going on with her teeter. Uh, she's looking for the tipping point. It's very, very, very common for dogs to run up the ramp and then look for that point somewhere in this zone where the teeter will tip for them. And she's looking for it, and she's found it right about there, right? So she's successful with this and move on, and we think it's okay. Here's the issue I have with it. Sometimes, but sometimes really it's fairly common. Dogs will look for this zone in here somewhere, that tipping point, and it's a little bit gray just because it's somewhere between the center and in this area around the point of the contact when the teeter will tip. They look for that point. And then what can happen very commonly is that when you get to, say, like a trial where you have a different teeter, different environment, and it can be slightly different. The tipping point on teeters can be different by a little bit here or there in the zone, and or just the environment itself. They slow down and they look for that point. And what can happen at a trial, and if you're at a trial, you can watch for it, you'll see it. It's like I said, it's pretty common. Is some dogs will stop and they'll look for that point. And you might hear people say things like, "Oh, you know, my dog is great at teeter at home or in practice, but not so great at trials." So they might stop there, look for it, and then if that tipping point is slightly different at that trial, then it weirds the dog out because the teeter doesn't move like they expected it to move. That can be very unnerving for dogs. So you'll see dogs run up to this point, sit there and wait, and when it doesn't, and then they jump off. Because now they don't trust that trial teeter. And then they associate trials with teeters that don't move like the trustworthy teeters back home. And it can spiral very poorly. So to prevent that, the solution is that we need to teach our dogs that the tipping point is the end. And that is because all teeters, 100% of them, will tip just fine if the dog runs to the very end. So right now, she's looking for this gray area somewhere in here for it to tip. Let's remove the gray and say, no, clear as day, black and white, this is the tipping point. So it comes with a bit of retraining for the teeter to teach them that the tipping point is the end. Will it be a teeny bit faster? Yes, it will. I don't even care about that tiny bit of time that you will save the teeter tipping a little bit faster if she's at the end. The reason that I'm trying to sell this idea to you is because I don't want to see something negative happen at a trial. Because it's the longer she goes looking for a tipping point in this zone, the harder it is to retrain and to fix that problem should that occur. So this is a bit of preventative maintenance by teaching her to run all the way to the end and just think that that's where the tipping point is. The whole process is not that complicated, but it does take time. And it's something that's a little bit out of the scope of this VAS class. It's more of an in-person thing. If you're working with Lindsay, I'm sure you could mention this to her. And I hope and I think that she would agree. At least she'd be able to help you in person do that, or other classes that you're working with. I don't know if you're taking other classes wherever you are in person, and if not, ask me in person, and we can talk about it a little bit. But it's not a complicated process. It's basically, your bad dog agility can definitely help you with this. They probably have some info on there. I'm sure they do have info also on the site to research. But we want to teach her that what she's been looking for in this zone doesn't work no more. This, any more than here all along, doesn't fly. The teeter won't tip. The teeter won't tip until you get to the end. And that's where the jackpot is. That's where she will get rewarded. And then the teeter will tip. Because if we can do that, then for the rest of her life, everywhere she goes, every single teeter will always tip the same, perfectly the same. And then she can anticipate, count on it, be confident in the teeter, and you'll have a great teeter for her entire career. As opposed to this gray area, which probably will be okay, but could lead to an issue. So that's my biggest piece of advice from this whole week for you. You did an awesome job with everything. It's been great to watch Mabyn progress. Just awesome. 2 pieces of advice for the week. The big one is this teeter. Reteach that tipping point. Think about that. And the second thing is the penguin drills. I do think will help some with Mabyn, but especially down the line with Tiny. Great job.